First, we start out finding discounted properties. That's called wholesaling. And then at some point, we become real estate investors, meaning we own property. We get cash flow from these properties. But when is it the right time to take these properties that you would usually wholesale, but you keep it in your portfolio? Here, a clip from the live show with Jared Vidalis shows you exactly when you should start taking your chips off the table and start building your portfolio. Check this out. How do you know when it's the right time to start taking some of these chips off the table and putting it into your rental portfolio?
Yeah, so I think it really depends. It's case by case, right?
Okay.
So I was actually talking to one of my mentees the other day on, he's starting he's wholesaling, he's making a bunch of cash, right? The first thing I told him is once you have enough breathing room, right? Enough breathing room when it comes to marketing, your overhead, your team, whatever, then start taking, like you said, some of those chips off the table.
Yeah.
And it may not seem sexy at first, right? Because, oh cool, like I bought one rental property that maybe spits off a couple grand a year in cash flow after all your debt service.
Yeah.
But like over time, so I guess to answer your question is, once you have enough breathing room, take some chips off, put it into a, just don't buy like the highest cash flowing property, because typically that's like a D class or a war zone type property. Put it into a nice stable property that that continues to grow.
Well, let me ask you about that. So what do you think is a nice buffer? Is it 90 days worth of expenses? Is it 6 months worth of expenses? And then you start taking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're brand new, because like you could close a couple big deals and all of a sudden you could have 6 months worth of expenses.
Right.
But you're still brand new and inexperienced, you could easily bring that thing back to zero, right? So I would say I would quantify it with money. Maybe it's 6 to 8 months, but I'd also quantify it with experience as well.
Love it.
So maybe it's like 1.5 years or 2 years. Once you've worked out the kinks in your businesses, you understand that your cash flows within your wholesaling business. So you're able to cash flow. You're able to predict and say like, holy shit, like cool, I ripped a $300,000 deal, it's, so I think it comes down to experience, cash in a bank, when you can start putting together your asset strategy or your rental strategy and say, hey, this is what I want to go after.
Yep. Love it. So when you're going after, I love that. I love that you're talking about years of experience, not necessarily the amount, because I think that that's so huge. I think being able to make sure that you have something sustainable in your like ATM machine, in your money machine is critical.
Exactly.
And I think it's critical to be able to take that money that you're making and get out of your 9-to-5 job, right? Pay off your consumer debts. Like feel more free to be able to go out there and really push it. You know what I mean? Now a lot of people start out, they've got jobs, they're working, they're doing all these things, and they want to transition into this full time, but you got to have enough. You got to make enough to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then here's my thing, right? So I have a wholesaling business. I only own a couple rentals, and I have the coaching business, right? And I feel like between the wholesaling and the coaching, it's a lot. I mean, when you add in a rental portfolio business, that's another business.
People think it's the misconception about rentals is people think it's passive, which it kind of is, but you really have to be on top of those assets, or your operational expenses will just crush your cash flow. So you're exactly right. You have to have a asset management strategy. You can't just say, I'm going to buy a rental, I'm going to rent it out, and I'm going to wait for a check to come in.
So how do you know? Like when you say operational costs, what do you mean?
So when I say operational costs, I mean, you have, starting off, you're going to manage it in-house, right? You have to provide a good customer service to your residences, and if you don't, all of a sudden, boom, vacancy. When a vacancy will crush any rental portfolio. That's the one variable that will crush it, right? Because when somebody moves out, boom, $500 to $800 to turn it, carpet, paint, stuff like that, and put the next tenant in, and all of a sudden your 1 year of cash flow, it's gone. So you have to provide a good customer service to your tenants. You have to provide a good quality product to your tenants, right? You can't just buy an REO and just put a tenant in there, because you're gonna attract a bad demographic of tenant who really doesn't care and they're just going to destroy your property, right? So
Yep.
good product, good customer service, and until you've wrapped your head around those two things, then you're ready to start owning property.
And then how do you go from one rental to 60? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's extremely difficult.
and I want people to know, you know, I mean, it's like you see people on TikTok, or you see people on Instagram, you see people like talking about how they have, you know, these huge portfolios of properties, and they own 100 doors or 200 doors or 1,500 doors or whatever else. That's a business.
Right.
Like, that's a full business with a full staff
Oh, yeah.
to be able to handle that. And you can build that, but you have to be able to understand that that's another whole business.
It's another whole business, right? So, like, you know, I didn't have the luxury. Well, I did. I'd have the luxury of, you know, being back in REO days or the
Right.
foreclosure days, and you see people snatching, who snatched up 1,000 property. Like, I started buying and holding really only about 18 to 24 months ago.
Right.
So, like, I was constrained to what the market had to offer, especially here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, but it all starts with buying that asset well below market value.
Yeah.
And once you have that asset below market value, you have way more options to, you have way more exit strategies,
Sure.
right? Because, like, my thing is when we go into a property knowing that it's going to be a rental, like, we're renovating that whole thing, right? Because, like, again, it comes down to quality product, quality customer service, because that, it may seem like a lot of money up front, but if you ever look at it from a long-term perspective, that thing will pay back way more in dividends, because, like, you're good tenant, good product, they're happy to be there, they're never going to leave, you're not going to have some bum living in your home.
If you like that video, hit that subscribe button. We come out with new videos every single day. And if you want your questions answered, like you and I, one-on-one, make sure that you join us for the live show every single Wednesday. I will see you there.